Hello and welcome back to Processing the Process, where we capture and discuss the technical, psychological, and contextual dynamics that shape the process of creating a work of art. Week by week, moment by moment, we're following Allie Akers, teacher, actor, director, and producer, as she shapes the development of her innovative middle school drama club and guides her students' idiosyncratic artistic journeys. Today, we will be focusing on the April 17th Drama Club meeting, which was designed, in fact, to be a showcase scene workshop. But first, I'd like to pull the lens back a little bit in the beginning of this videocast to examine the contextual dynamics that Allie encounters at different times throughout the season. And these dynamics tend to fluctuate between foreground and background over time. And the way they play out is really unique to the particular set of students who comprise the club each year. So let's get specific. First, as we've seen, Allie takes a variety of different approaches to facilitate group cohesion from the very beginning of the season. But the bonds between kids are not static. The strength and quality of those connections can really vary over time. So Allie never loses sight of the need to regularly assess the degree of cohesion and refocus on strengthening, or I should say re-strengthening, group identity when she feels that the bonds have weakened. Now, this is an iterative process, returning to fundamental concepts repeatedly over time, but with a little bit more experience each time. Allie, you shared with me that the kids are going through a period of time right now where you feel the need to facilitate this cohesion again. Now, I know you used a warm-up exercise and a game in this session as vehicles to enable you to assess the ensemble. Mm-hmm. How did that go?
Not well.
You got your answer pretty quickly, it sounds like.
Yeah, I gave a simple instruction, like we circle up every day as we know. And I told them this time, circle up in height order, like figure out how you're going to make that happen. And it was not really that amazingly successful. It took them a long time. There was even like squabbling over who's taller. And I'm like, really?
Oh.
It was like little things like that, nothing major, but little things. And, you know, at this point, it really should be like circle up, height order. And it, like not perfection, of course, but, you know, a little more smooth than it went. I gave them another chance. I was like, give another 10 seconds to fix it. And like, then they're like, oh gosh, yeah, this is terrible. And like worked to fix it. And it's not necessarily like they're not being bad when they're being unfocused like this at all. It's just clearly there's something that's not gelling here, you know?
Yes.
So the warm-up, that was our warm-up. We did a game that is, as you had pointed out, designed to build focus and connection. It's called U, or categories, and we're in a circle, and one person will step into the center and cross the circle. Wherever they want to go to another person, say their name, and then take their place, and that person steps into the circle and crosses, goes to somebody else, says their name, and it's just kind of like a little musical chairs going around and around and around. And the way that makes this a little more, and that's a good like name game thing we do in the beginning of the year, which we have done in the beginning of the year. But the way that we use this game to build focus and connection and all of this is we add categories. So there'll be one kid going around saying names to people, but then I'll throw in another kid who's going around saying like types of food or animals or, you know, I don't know, geographical places or something like that. And you can, I mean, I've done this in previous years with like 4 different categories going around. So you have
Wow.
to know like what's being said to you. What are you going to think of to say next to somebody else? Don't hit that person that there's 3 of now in the middle of the center as you're crossing. So it really does. It's like a whole body awareness, mental awareness,
Right.
connection. All of that really is playing out. And speed matters. Like you don't want to just be like slogging through. You know, you have a little pep in your step throughout this whole thing. Energize the exercise. And again, not really fantastic, really not. So that was kind of that was pretty frustrating. You know, it told me a lot, gave me a lot of information.
That's right. That's right.
I was frustrated with certain kids that were definitely making choices that were impacting the success of the activity or of the game. But I was also just generally frustrated with the everything. Not upset with them, but wondering, okay, like what am I doing wrong here? Why are these kids not gelling as others have in the past?
Right.
At this point in time. So we had a group discussion.
Well, I was just going to say that, as our colleagues know by now, a hallmark of your drama club process is the fact that you initiate group discussions about any issue that impacts any part of the club or all of the club. And I know you decided, as you just said, to do that after essentially observing evidence that confirmed your suspicion that the group was simply not gelling.
Yeah, not yet. Some are totally taking on the leadership roles. Some are looking to me and being like, can I do a 5/4? They're like, yes, do it. It's happening. It's just not, it hasn't caught everybody yet, you know? And the fact that it's happening in some places is excellent. It's great. I can use that to help them kind of bring everybody else into that shared mindset, you know, and that's what I focused on. That the importance for them of everybody being on the same page, and how can we help each other to be on that same page, you know. What can I do? Well, like the assessment, this was an assessment, this game was for me to see where they are. Well, now having played this, maybe we'll play it again, reminding them, guys, this is what we did last time, same exact game, same exact categories. Can we make this run more smoothly now that we have done this before? Is there a little bit of even muscle memory involved here? You know, like this muscle, the whole thing, all of it. Is there some way we can use what we've done before to improve on how we do it again? Not a foreign concept. Giving them as much opportunity as possible to kind of, you know, work those muscles of working together. Yeah, and the other thing too is the grades themselves, like 6, 7, 8, whatever, they're a little more segmented. They're a little more with themselves rather than kind of just mushing all into one. In some ways, especially depending on seeing groups over the years, that has happened a little bit. But by now, it's kind of like we are one, you know. So the fact that I'm noticing that also is a little bit challenging, a little bit new for me to deal with at this point in time, like this close to performance.
So if I think back to the introduction here, when we were talking about issues going from foreground to background, an iterative kind of process, yes, from what I understand in the past, there are those variations over time in the cohesiveness of the group, but it sounds as if the degree of the what's the opposite of cohesion? It's not coming to me. But the degree of segmentation, shall we say, seems more pronounced and more dramatic this year than in previous years. So it's almost as if it's outside of what has become your norm, I think.
A little bit, yeah, a little bit. I mean, every year is different, as we've talked about. This particular issue is not one that I'm welcoming with open arms. And it is driven by the kids in the group themselves. We have different personalities. Right. We have all sorts of, as we do in any other place of working together. So yeah, it's a challenge, and I don't think anyone is coming from a place of like being malicious or malign to what we're all trying to do. I think it's just in general, this is just a very different, energized, a little less focused group than I've seen in a little while. So
exactly. And on top of that, let's take a look at a second dynamic. As Allie has explained several times during the last few videocasts, but particularly now, there is a lot to do in a short amount of time. And it appears that there are 3 key circumstances that are impacting the chances of everything getting accomplished on time for the showcase this year. The first is the sporadic attendance during the Wednesday meetings, the almost lack of participation in the activity period conferences, as well as the Monday and Friday additional after-school sessions. Second is the ability of the kids to move forward into this new phase of the process. And third is Allie's desire to create an environment that's not pressured or prescriptive, which really results in a general reluctance to mandate attendance, to mandate almost anything, really. So, Allie, can you elaborate on these 3 circumstances? What from your perspective is going on, and how it's impacting you as well?
Yeah. Well, the first issue, the sporadic attendance, that's the biggest tangible impact. When you literally don't have everybody there, you literally can't work on things. It's puzzle pieces.
Yeah.
This has always been kind of what it has been like, but not to the degree that I'm experiencing. And if we can't necessarily all be at the main, like the home base big meeting in the middle of the week that's extended, I usually have these kids calling me, coming to me, even if it's like a 20-minute check-in. Different groups, different kind of kids, and all different kinds of kids within the group. A few more of the type that are not so much seeking things out as I've had with the younger kids, especially. So really, when I have had last year, for example, my current 7th graders, last year there were 6th graders, we mentioned this before, now they're 7th graders, they have sports, their time is a bit split, but last year this particular group of kids, very driven, very self-motivated, very, on point. Right. The current 6th grade, a little less so. They bring other gifts to the table. Right. They're energetic, they're creative, they have ideas, but now when do we focus that in? Which kind of takes us to that next point. That ability to move forward. Okay, we need to make decisions. We need to put these decisions into action. Yes. We need to start, doing all of the things that go with this to make this really come to life. And they are struggling a little bit because they're not as independent. And I'm making a lot of comparisons here, but that's the context, is what we have. Right. So, that I do believe is sort of the difference between at least last year and this year. Last year, very on point, right up to, if I were to benchmark it, it'd be like, we made all of our benchmarks. With some stumbles along the way, as we do. But yeah, a lot more hand holding, a little less independence, a little less, not the confidence is there. It's just owning it and being confident with, okay, let's go with this idea. Let's nail it down. Let's really land the plane, So it takes that intuitive sense of knowing and having that okay, so here we are. I have this much time. What do I need to do? The younger kids who typically might be there more often don't necessarily have the same ability to plan out their time on their own, to know that they need to do a little more. I'm not in their brain, and I'm not with them when they're not with me, obviously. So I can't say, well, you need to do this, this, and this by the time we see you Wednesday. You can't show up Wednesday saying, what should I have done? You know, so in the past, other and varying grades, maybe they had a little bit more of that time management ability. And I really honestly don't know why this particular year I'm having that. We sort of talked about this in general, you know, kids in general, maybe a little less focused than we've seen in years past, you know. So maybe that's kind of coming out a little bit. We're seeing a little bit of those new trends that we're seeing, and, you know, not all younger people, but, you know, there's like a generic kind of like, oh, they're, you know, a little distracted, maybe more so than I was when I was their age, or you were when you were their age. You know what I mean? And I'm sort of seeing that a little bit. And your last point regarding not wanting to create like a pressured, prescriptive environment or mandating attendance, that kind of comes from the desire for them to want to be there. You know, our motto is commitment, focus, respect. These things stem from within you, not because someone's saying, you have to be there. Like, I feel like I've created the scaffolding where they understand my intention. They know that I find it to be very important for them to be there. I've said it. I've written it down on things. I've put up posters on walls. Like, we know that we're supposed to be there. We know that it's best if we go because it's the only time we have to work, especially if we do struggle to work outside of the time that, you know, I'm available. So I want it to come from them. I don't necessarily want it to be like, you have to be here because you signed up for this. Like, I'd rather that be more of a character thing that we're working on and meeting in the middle of, or you know, meeting that mark. The other thing too is, if I become a bit tougher with these dates of participation, I might be closing the door on kids that maybe need it, maybe need a place to be. In a lot of the years that I've been doing this, you know,
you've mentioned that. Yes.
Yeah, there have been kids where maybe I kind of noticed so and so kind of off in the corner, you know, drawing or just kind of being amongst themselves, and the theater is like such a home for everybody that is looking for one, if you know what I mean.
Right.
So if I can sort of spot that, I say, like, and plus, they're drawing, maybe they love being creative, who knows, maybe they don't even know that this exists yet, so I might, like, draw some students and literally be like, you're coming to drama club today, let's go see if that's okay with mom, you know, and then, but sometimes, you know, maybe these kids are trying this out for the first time, or maybe certain kids that can't be there all the time, but really would benefit from it. I can be flexible, like, I want to try to make it work. So if I'm having a scenario with one student or a couple of students where, like, you know, they can come a little bit, they don't want to dabble too much, just want to be there a little bit, and then maybe that grows for them, and then eventually they get a little more enthusiastic and a little more confident, a little more, they discover that, this is a great place, and maybe the next year they're all in. But, like, for that first year, I don't want to have rules for some kids saying, you can't be here because you didn't commit in this way, and this is the way we have to be, and these are the dates we have to be at, where for another kid or another few kids, I'm making these concessions. I'm like, that's okay, like, I get it, just come on this day, we'll meet together separately over here. I'm willing to do this flexibility kind of method, you know, because that's sometimes what you have to do to make sure that you can reach people that might need to be reached, or the doors open, make it easy to walk through. So I don't really want to close doors, right? But I'm really starting, maybe it's the larger numbers, which obviously means it's harder to get everybody in the room at the same time.
Absolutely.
It is a new thing that I'm going to have to really reevaluate how I kind of work with that mindset. Am I going to be super flexible? Am I going to be more rigid to assure that everybody that is there is getting what they need? And that is literally a question that's going to be very deeply examined for next year's process.
Exactly. There are no easy answers here. Yeah. It's not black or white. And I wonder, listening to your descriptions of the particular population that you have to work with now, and how that is pretty reflective of what we're seeing culturally in general with our young kids. And, if I wonder, do you think there is really an understanding of the connection between what it is that needs to be done and what outcome we're looking to obtain? I mean, you started to get at, what do I really need to do? I wonder if that is really well understood, or is it perhaps still a little bit more ephemeral, amorphous of a concept, that it's not tangible. I wonder if that's really tough for them to visualize and conceptualize, and just somehow not making the link between the two.
For some kids, I would say yes. And then other kids are right on point, even in the 6th grade. It's not the entire younger group or the younger half of the group that we have, There are definitely kids in there that are like, wow, why aren't we working? You know what I mean? So some kids have a very strong sense of where we are and where we need to be and where we have to go. And I do believe, as you're describing, I agree with you. I think there's some kids that don't really quite see that bigger picture or understand exactly where they are versus where they need to be. It's like that metacognitive element, comparing that to the bigger picture. It's like, And so, yes, that's definitely a factor.
Which sounds like your experience as an educator day in and day out, where you're in essence differentiating instruction given the different levels of the kids that you're working with, and might that in fact be helpful for the drama club if you really have such a wide variety of abilities.
And that's what's been happening. I absolutely have been differentiating. I've been adjusting my own expectations, helping them adjust theirs, and using a lot of the techniques, recognizing that we are just going to have a lot of different things, a lot of different levels, skill levels represented on the stage. And that's okay. None of this is a bad thing. It's just not comfortable, and I do wish that we had, more focus. I really do. That's just what it is at the moment, and I'm doing everything I can to help them take the reins, if you will. But whatever ends up on that stage is exactly what's supposed to be there too. So,
well, that's a good point.
Kind of where we're at. So we'll see, but it's going to be quite varied, I think.
And maybe if you can give us a quick update on what progress or lack thereof each group made in this particular session, I think our colleagues will begin to really get a very good sense of these dynamics. You'll see how this is playing out.
Yeah. You may notice a trend. Our opening scene, we didn't have the entire group, like the full cast there, and honestly I don't know if we ever will until Tech Week, which is a literal statement. Like, we really may not have everybody there till it's like time to put everything together. So we didn't work on that. A couple of girls wanted to add ideas, and we have a shared online document, and so they put more ideas to add when we do that. And that was by design, though. I don't want to design that piece until, quite frankly, other ones are done, because that's going to be an easier one to put together. So we're going to hold off on that a little bit. Hunger Games, the whole group was not there, which made it difficult to block scenes. They wanted to start some of the choreography for the battle scenes, which is fantastic and super fun. And I led a little workshop, and I partnered them up. And I was like, okay, kids, like, go ahead and fight. I taught them a sequence, just a little sequence that involves some movement, some receiving and giving different, combat moves and things like that safely, to learn how to do it safely. And I did have high school mentors there to guide that and help with that, which is great. And as soon as I was like, all right, partner up, we're going to give it a try. Like half of them were like, we have to take the late bus. I was like, what? Okay, fine. I was like, I'm like on the floor, like on my back with like a kid's like foot on me, and I'm like, what do you mean?
Oh gosh,
it's like ridiculous. So I was like, okay, we'll be able to do it again, and they've seen it now, and so it'll be in there a little bit. But that was a little frustrating, definitely. We have the game show girls, where the kids get sucked into the game show and have to kind of like battle again, the competition, which we addressed. The robots, whether they're going to become a robot or not, if they lose this game show. The script is almost done, which is great. It really is. We're getting there. In terms of they were struggling with almost like administrative things or just being responsible. I'd ask them many times, share with me what you have, please. They're working on their phones in some kind of other realm. I created something for them that I wanted them to work on. That's the only way, as we discussed earlier, it's the only way when I don't see them to know what's happening, to stay in touch. And a lot of days went by. Like, we're talking multiple meetings where I was like, girls, please, like, I need to see what you had. I only know what we had, the notes that I've taken. So they finally uploaded that to me, and they're working on that, and they're really just about there, which is great. Then they had to leave early, so that was that. The dead meme, bless you. The dead meme scene, our lead writer, who's also kind of the main architect, she sort of took the helm on the scene. She was absent, so the rest of the group really felt that they couldn't move forward. And I mean, I agreed with them because that script, it's rough, it's rocky. I don't quite understand it. I think that there were a lot of elements within it that can be made into, we need to sew some things together. I don't quite understand what's happening. Right. And these other younger kids really didn't understand what was happening. And I think there was some communication issues in that group a little bit originally. And then when this other person came in to take the helm, she did a good job taking the helm, but I think she took so much of the helm, there wasn't enough where the others could translate without her present. And that's not what you want. You want, that's not a good place to be when we need to move forward. So what I did with them, though, they did think a little bit more about the ways that they're going to create their characters. I had them list out various needs of scene design, things like that. So it wasn't wasted time. It's just not necessarily, it doesn't matter how you design something if you don't have a scene to design. So I need to give them something to do, which also is something that we discover when we don't have all members in a scene, but I don't also have those kids in any other scenes because of the way this group is working. Like I said, very segmented this year. So I have bodies that I can't do anything with, which is unfortunate for everybody. I do everything I can to give them something to do. So we designed, you know what I mean? And they did it together with themselves. I wasn't there. They know how to do it. They know what they need. They did what they could with that. The open mic night. Those are the boys that are a little older. They do sports, so they wanted to kind of have something manageable. We had tossed around doing an improv. They've now decided they really actually want to develop this open mic night thing, which is like a comedy routine, really fun. Like there's one of the boys as a host, and he's like, he's the MC or whatever, and then he introduces this silly, like basically like stand-up comedy duo, which is really cute. So they actually did a great job. They showed up. They stayed till 5. They're going to actually plan to workshop and develop their characters a little bit more over the break that's happening, spring break, which is great. And they're going to be around. They're going to be able to hang out. So hopefully we'll come back after break with that. But I'm not too worried about that one, actually. That one is really, it flows naturally. They're natural. They're really intuitive with what they're doing. They know what they're doing. They're funny. I think I'm really honestly not worried about that, which is like, whew, yay, good. It's not done, but I don't think it's going to not be done. It's gonna be fun. It's simple. It's going to be an easy one. Foiled Grandma, we had talked about that one. That's a working title. That's my own reference title. The script is done, yay, which is great. Wow. The lead writer on that, she's an older student and she's working with a younger student, which I really like when that happens. I like when things cross because that's when you kind of make it interesting. Both have different gifts, different ways of seeing things, and each kind of enhance the other. That's right. Which I really like. So the lead writer, she's the older member. She finished her script. And what's interesting is she actually modeled the main character, the grandmother, after her own family member, which is really kind of sweet. and it is, as we know, it's kind of like silly things happen to the grandmother. The little girl kind of like tricks her in simple ways, nothing malicious or whatever. And that was my main goal. Was like, it's just like making an old lady feel bad. Like we don't want that. We don't want that. But it's not. The way she's constructing it and the language that she's using is very interesting. And it's not mocking, which is good. Then we have the audition scene of the various girls and guys that are all trying to go out for like, and get your gun, I think is what they're doing, because they're doing a little anything you can do, I can do better kind of, play on that, which is cute. Not everyone was there. So there was minimal blocking on that, which that scene I feel like we really, it's not that it's easy, it's just, it's straightforward. So I would love to get it done so we can now then make it more, because it's so straightforward. We don't really have any nuts and bolts to kind of figure out. But again, not everyone was there, so we couldn't block the entire thing. So what the girls and guys did is they worked more on their individual segment within the scene, because it is like an audition and the next person and the next person and a little banter and stuff between. So that's what they focused on, and they did get a lot done. And I think I'm going to have to help one of the girls. She is happy to be there, feeling ready to work, but she's struggling coming up with like what she wants to do.
Right.
And she's getting a lot of suggestions from her peers and stuff. But the nature of this scene, I think, was about the individuals really creating a character, something that speaks to them.
Right.
Yeah. Which brings me to the best part about this scene. The little girl who wanted to be Matilda so bad, and it just didn't happen ever. Well, she's in this scene, and she's actually going to be Matilda. She's going to sing
That's
this
incredible.
Ido. So, and I think the way she's going to do it, because everyone has something a little off about their character. They don't necessarily get the part. Maybe they do. We don't know yet. But there is, they're quirky characters. So she's going to we're going to work together, because she wants to do... make it almost like she's doing a dance as well, a little choreographed number to one of the songs that she wanted to sing. But I'm going to teach her some little stage trips and falls and like a little clumsy. We're going to give her a little clumsiness to it, and a little like oop, that kind of She's young, she's little, she's cute. It's going to play really well, and she's really happy with that idea. So we're gonna go there. Yeah. So that is that with where we are with what we could do on that day.
Well, so here we see, I think very clearly from Allie's descriptions, one of the main problems with sporadic attendance is that it really prevents cohesive rehearsal for each of the groups. And understandably, that ignites Allie's anxiety about whether or not everything's going to be ready in time for the showcase. And it seems, Allie, that you traveled a fine line between encouraging and mandating when you spoke with the kids who actually had to leave early. And while traveling that fine line, nonetheless, you were still pretty emphatic about the fact that they really have to use the activity period conferences and the Monday and Friday sessions, essentially warning them that there was a chance that they may not be prepared unless they do. Was that how, or I should say, how do you think that information was received by these kids?
I think for some, the message was received, and for others, it went in one ear and out the other, as I've sort of seen. I'm hoping that I'll get a few more contacts from them about, can I see you on this day, can I see you on that day? We have break coming up, which may be good for everybody. We'll see. When we come back ready, charged, here we go, it's go time, it's, performance month, whatever.
Right.
So we'll see, and all I can do is keep trying to get them to understand. I want to, I think what I want to do too, if I continue to have this issue, I'm going to talk to my older kids and have them lead. Like, I'm going to leave. I'm going to be like, I got to go run an errand. And almost like kind of not fabricate, because it would be real, but have the older kids in the group be the ones to talk about it. Like, I'll be like, oh, I'm going to be right back, kids. And I'll leave the room, leaving my mentors there, and let them kind of have the discussion and see if there's any difference if they're the ones guiding it.
Interesting.
You know, like I might even pull some of my really strong older kids and say, guys, do you see this happening? Do you see what I'm seeing? What can we do? Well, I want you to lead a discussion, you know, and see if that does anything, because sometimes that is what needs to happen when the person whom they feel is holding everything together kind of like steps back, then they're like, oh, it's us holding it together.
Right.
Oh, no.
Right.
So that's something that I'm considering doing, and I've done that in the past, too. I've done that where, I just say, guys, get it together, and I leave. But not in a nasty way. In that particular one, yeah, I kind of had to be a little more firm. This is a number of years ago, because there was a lot of like behavioral choices, and I don't really have that here. I think a lot of any behavior stuff is really driven by like a lack of focus, a lack of understanding of how much we have to do in this amount of time.
Right.
So that's something that I'm really considering doing to see if we can address that.
Well, while you were speaking, I was reminded again about what I pointed out even earlier, your preference for looking at and addressing dynamics that are impacting the whole group collectively. And so maybe this kind of collective conversation would be very helpful. While you're taking on the vast majority, you have been taking on the vast majority of the responsibility of trying to figure out what's going on and how to address it. Might it be helpful to go back to one of the principal ways you operate, which is, this is a group issue. What do you all think? What have them help diagnose, have them help envision ways to move forward that perhaps might be more effective.
Yeah.
So we'll keep you all posted on how this plays out. But in the meantime, interestingly, we saw a conflict arise in this session, and fortunately there really hasn't been much of that for the majority of the year. But again, as is typical of your approach, you collectively addressed the problematic dynamics with the students involved. And I think it really gave you the opportunity to reiterate and reinforce the drama club's norms and ways of operating. And I think that really benefited not only the new student involved in this scenario, but the existing kids as well.
Yeah. We this is interesting because it actually sort of falls in line with something that you had brought up in the past. Like, I had a kid who had been there in the beginning come back like very recently, and this person was like, I was in drama club and I want to be in the showcase now. And I'm like, okay, like, where you been? Again, back to the don't want to close the door. Maybe, this kid is like an outlet. I really do believe that. But I didn't love that she was, very cavalier about it, and it wasn't so much like, I've been gone, I know I've missed a lot, hopefully I can, there's a spot for me, and I'd love to be on board and do what I can. It was more like a very, I'm here, and what, where's my spotlight kind of a thing, and I'm like, okay. But yeah, so I did explain about the commitment level now and all of this, and we're, we need to have a conversation about that and get, the parentals involved on that, all of that. And then later in the meeting, this same person actually, I kind of overheard some rudeness being displayed, and I didn't like that either. The student insisted that they were just joking, and I'm like, well, family meeting. Let's have a family meeting now.
There you go.
I like to use these moments as ways, as you have pointed out, for, yes, of course, for that student, but then anybody else, too, that's around, that was involved, learns as well. And depending on the incident, sometimes it's private, because it doesn't necessarily have to be everybody's business. This particular instance, it was a little more public, only in the sense that the groups that were directly involved, there's a handful of kids. We had a talk together. It wasn't like a whole group, but it was the kids that were there, that knew, that saw, that we know that was not maybe the right choice that this person made. So yeah, I reminded this child, like, all of these other kids have been here. They put in the time. This is how we operate. You know, when you come walking in here and say that, I'm just joking. That's how I joke. Well, that's not how we joke. We don't joke because what you said was not nice, and what I saw was someone walking away upset, and that's the problem. So whether this is something you carry on and do in your world outside of this space that we've created is not something that we do here. So I had to remind her of that. And I had to remind her that she's absolutely welcome to stay, but this is the guideline that she needs to follow. You know what I mean? If you're not going to be on board with that, there's other places that you can spend your time. And I said, am I doing this to embarrass you? Absolutely not. Am I doing this to make you feel like you should leave? Absolutely not. The opposite. I'm informing you because you haven't been here in a while. That look at where we are now, like read the room, jump on the train. Right. We're all going together, and we want you on board, but there are ways that we treat each other so that we can operate successfully and with respect, and we're able to then have the conversations that might involve criticism, knowing that we're not hurting one another when we do, because we don't have these tones or nuances in the way that we use our language that can be misconstrued as just being mean. Like, there's a way that we have learned to communicate, and that is not in line with how we operate. So it was a little tricky. I'm hoping for a positive outcome. I will leave it up to her whether she wants to return. She's certainly welcome to return. I know she'd bring a lot to the scene that she's in at the moment. So I'm going to monitor that very closely, and we'll see. I don't want to just assume that she's just coming from a place of being rude and mean, and that's who she is. Who knows what happened to her during the day? Who knows what happened that I didn't see? That not everybody was necessarily informing me about. So the conversation, the intention was to give her the opportunity to understand how we operate and to join that mindset.
And with that information, she will, again, as you say, maybe continue or not. But if so, you then have a basis on which to evaluate what you see about her behavior and ability to connect with the group and kind of move from there.
Yeah.
And I think in general, as we move forward over this next month and a half up to the showcase, I think this process is very, very interesting on many levels, but not only, what is going to happen with these particular scenes? How are they going to develop? What is it going to look like when they pull it together? What is that process going to, manifest as? But at the same time, really following the process that involves all of these kinds of dynamics that we really got into quite a bit today. And not the least of which, of course, is Allie's psychological landscape in terms of how it is impacting her and what happens as a result. So we really have the opportunity, I think, through these videocasts to investigate process on multiple levels and, again, of course, do it in real time with you. So stay with us as we come to this last segment where things are complex. Things are tricky. Let's see how everyone involved winds up navigating. Of course, first and foremost, Allie. So stay tuned with us. Thank you for joining us. Thank you, Allie, as always, and we'll see you next week.
Bye.